I'm really excited to welcome Matt Dollinger to the show today. Now, many of you may recognize Matt from one of the many hats in real estate he has worn. You may also recognize from the personal hat that he has worn as my partner, personally, professionally, and my husband for at least a couple of decades. So here's my first question for you. I want to really start to tap into your expertise because it spanned so many different facets of the real estate industry. Having worn so many different hats in the real estate realm over the past 2 decades, what have you really noticed as some of the biggest changes?
Well, obviously, the first thing is the evolution of teams. Teams have been probably the biggest changer of real estate to date. Is that there were essentially many brokerages inside of brokerages. Those didn't exist when you got into the world. 20 some years ago. It was an agent who might have an assistant or something along those lines, but that's really what it is. The technology world has just like leaps and bounds. We could be here all day talking about the changes that have gone on in real estate. From photography, I mean, I remember we were still post digital camera. I don't ever remember looking at like proofs or anything like that, like your mom has told the stories about. But they were terrible. The photos, when you look back at them now,
I even look back on my photos from a decade ago and go, "Gosh, how did we even use those?" And at the time, we thought it was the latest and greatest.
Absolutely, it was like $5,000 digital cameras that people would show up with. The technology aspect, though, to go off of the photography has been revolutionary. Matterport, I think, was the first one to really come up with the 360-degree home tours to really allow people to walk through, and they used to be so terrible and so cumbersome. I mean, I
used to get sick when I watched them.
You would get literally like ill trying to navigate through a house, and they were so expensive and everything like that nobody really used them a whole lot. They've gotten so much better now, and there's great companies to use it. Drone photography, drone video.
There was no such thing.
Nobody, like, that was military grade stuff. Like, nobody was able to touch that type of thing. Sure. So all that representation and staging staging was big then, but the virtual staging that's out there now, the photo enhancements, I mean, are just photography, I think, in general, photography, video, what we're doing right now. This is the stuff that really didn't exist. And that stuff really just made such a huge difference for not only the consumer to be able to evaluate and consider or kick out properties like that. They were able to look through all these different homes on the market and consider them or not, but also really to be able to put these listings with their best foot forward.
Well, and I think personally and professionally, I think that COVID was a gigantic push for us.
Huge.
Right? Because the reality is we had to get incredibly transparent. We had to be able to bring the outside in. We needed to get people to have more exposure in what they were looking at because they didn't want to walk through the first door. I always say when I got into real estate, people thought the marketing was nice, but that wasn't their first impression. They were always going to come through the door. Now, fast forward 1-2 decades, they will discard us based on what that marketing looks like in front of them. The video, the social, the photographs, all of that, we will get discarded because somebody didn't like the way that we presented.
And I think that's almost sad in certain capacities because they don't get to have the vibe, the feel of the property. They discount things immediately. Oh, sure. God, those maple cabinets, boom, and done. Or this one, backs up to a corner unit that I don't really like. Boom, I'm done. Or I read this on Nextdoor that the neighborhood is going to hell in a handbasket.
Sure.
They're taking in all this information, and I think that can be a bad thing at a lot of times is they can't do it. But to go back to your point about COVID, everything was there. All the technology was there, but people are creatures of habit, and they got stuck in this role, or not even stuck, but they liked doing it this way. You would go pick up a buyer. Your buyers would ride around in the back of your car with you for 5, 6 hours.
To be clear, I'm not a chauffeur. I like them in the front seat, not the back seat.
Okay, whatever. But, they would do this, or you would sit down and come into my office. We're going to sit down. We're going to do this, go through 5 or 6 times that don't work and everything like that. And all of a sudden it was overnight. All of a sudden it was like, you had to do a Zoom. You had to do a Google meeting. You had to do a virtual showing. You were out there, in COVID, you were out there with your mask and your gloves and your hand sanitizer, like FaceTiming people.
Clorox wipes.
Right, your Clorox wipes, like walking through a property because people didn't want to go out of their home. And so I think it really jumped, it was one of those situations where it just jumped ahead light years because you're forced to do it. You're forced to, agents who didn't want to use technology, they were forced to use DocuSign. They were forced to use all this technology. So I think that was really the catalyst that propelled us forward in a lot of these things.
I agree with you so much on that. And the thing that I think was so interesting about it is that most people that really understood marketing, right? You're a marketing guy, could look at old real estate and it felt archaic. Even in the time that we were doing it, it felt archaic. So, it's funny to think of the silver linings of COVID, but COVID kind of, excuse my language, kicked our asses and pushed us forward light years in terms of where we were to where we are today.
Absolutely. And just so we're perfectly clear, there have been as many successes where you have, DocuSign, you have digital photography, you have drone photography, you have all these other things, digital floor plans that are created like this. Yep. There have been 10 times more failures of real estate because there's actually a term for it. It's called PropTech. PropTech. Those are the failed. This is the vertical of property technology that all these new and cool things come into. And there are countless ones because they see.
Wait. I want to make sure I don't misuse this. So PropTech is the stuff that comes in regardless if it succeeds or fails? Or
Correct. Okay. It's a property technology. Anything that comes into this vertical. DocuSign would be in there, Matterport, any of these things that,
Is there lingo for the failed stuff?
Shite, I believe is the good one. But there's all these things that like people spent billions of dollars. And the reason why is that they see that agents and brokers and everything are spending millions, if not billions of dollars a year in marketing. And they see this and they go in and they say, oh, we're going to make, my favorite one was Zillow actually came up with this like before COVID, was the augmented reality app. Where, you could go in and you could hold your phone up to a home and you could look through the home and get a tour of it. It was terrible. 0% like adoption rate.
Sure.
And these virtual reality things, like the Apple headset came out and people are like, oh, this is going to change it. And it's like, oh my God.
That was a big fat.
No, but there are all these wonderful things these technologies that people have for ideas that didn't work and didn't succeed.
Of course.